A static sprite kills the feel of a game, it just slides around like a sticker. Load a sprite sheet, and that same character can idle, run, and jump. Let's animate one, in Phaser 3 and TypeScript. One quick, honest heads up before we open the editor. Once your character is animated, the next thing you'll want is finished games to pull apart. So I made a Phaser game dev bundle, $19, 10 complete browser games with full TypeScript source. Reskin 1, and ship it. It's completely optional, and the link is below. Now, let's bring a sprite to life. Here is a real Phaser game, running live in the browser, right now. Watch the character. When it stands still, it breathes with an idle animation. When you move, it runs. When it leaves the ground, it snaps to a jump frame. And when it turns around, the whole sprite flips. None of that is extra art flying around. It is one small image, a sprite sheet, and a handful of lines of code. That's the entire trick, and by the end of this video you'll be able to do all of it yourself. So what actually is a sprite sheet? It is a single image that holds every frame of your animations, laid out in a grid. Row by row, frame by frame. Phaser slices that one image into numbered frames, then flips through them fast enough that your eye reads it as motion. Same idea as a flipbook. Here's the mental model for the whole video. You load the sheet once. You define your animations once, idle, run, jump. Then, every frame, you just tell Phaser which one to play based on what the player is doing. Load, create, play. That's the shape of it. Every line I show is correct, current Phaser 3 and TypeScript. And I'll point you to a free written guide so you can copy each one. Let's load a sheet. Everything starts in preload, with one call, this.load.spritesheet. It takes three things. A key, which is the name you'll use everywhere else, we'll call ours player. The path to the image file. And a config object with frameWidth and frameHeight. Those two numbers are the whole secret. FrameWidth 32, frameHeight 48 tells Phaser, chop this image into cells that are 32 pixels wide and 48 pixels tall. Phaser then walks the grid left to right, top to bottom, and numbers every cell, 0, 1, 2, 3, and on. That numbering is what you'll reference in a second. If your character's idle poses are the first 4 cells, that's frames 0 through 3. If the run cycle is the next 6, that's frames 4 through 9. You never touch the image again, you just talk about frame numbers. One thing that trips people up. A sprite sheet needs evenly sized frames, all the same width and height. If your art has different sized frames, that's a texture atlas instead. It loads a little differently, we'll come back to that at the end. For a clean grid, this.load.spritesheet is all you need. Now the fun part, defining the animations. This happens in Create, and you only do it once, when the scene starts. Each animation is one call to this.anims.create, and you hand it an object with 4 things. First, a key, the animation's name. Idle, run, jump. This is what you'll play later. Second, the frames. You generate those with this.anims.generate frame numbers, passing your sprite sheet key and a start and an end. Start 0, end 3 grabs frames 0, 1, 2, 3, your idle cycle, in order. Third, frame rate. That's how many frames play per second. 8 is a calm, breathing idle. 12 feels like a proper run. Higher is faster and snappier, this one number changes the entire feel, so tune it by eye. And fourth, repeat. Repeat -1 means loop forever, which is exactly what idle and run want. Leave repeat off, or set it to 0, and the animation plays once and stops. Jump is the simple case. A jump is often a single held pose while the character is in the air. So jump can be just one frame, you can even skip generate frame numbers and hand it a single frame directly. One key, one frame, done. 3 animations defined, and we haven't touched the game loop yet. Here's where your character actually comes alive, playing an animation. The call is short. This.player.anims.play, and the name of the animation. Anims.play, "run." That's it. Phaser starts flipping through the run frames. But look at that second argument, true. This is the single most important detail in the whole video, so let me slow down. That true means ignore if playing. Remember, update runs about 60 times a second. If you call play run every frame without that flag, Phaser restarts the run animation from frame 0 every frame. Your character freezes on the first frame and never actually animates. It looks completely broken. With true, Phaser checks, am I already playing run? If yes, it does nothing and lets the animation keep flowing. If no, it starts it. So you can safely call play every single frame, and it just works. Set that flag, and you'll skip the number 1 Phaser animation bug that everyone hits at least once. So the pattern is, decide which animation the state calls for, then call anims.play with that key in true. Every frame. Let the flag sort out the rest. Before we wire up the states, one small thing that saves you a ton of work, flipping. Most characters run both left and right. You do not draw 2 run animations. You draw one, facing right, and you mirror it. That's one line. This.player.setFlipX, true. SetFlipX true mirrors the sprite horizontally, so your right-facing run now faces left. Set it back to false, and it faces right again. So in your movement code, when the left key is down, you move left and call setFlipX true. When the right key is down, you move right and call setFlipX false. One run animation, both directions, from a single line. The run frames keep playing the whole time, flipping the sprite doesn't interrupt the animation at all. This is the kind of thing that feels like a shortcut but is actually just how everyone does it. Half the art you thought you needed, you don't. One direction, and a flip. Now let's put it all together into the piece that runs every frame, the update method. This is a tiny state machine. 3 questions, in order, and each answer plays one animation. First, figure out the player's state. Are we on the ground? We check the physics body, body.blocked.down is true when the player is standing on something. And which way are we pressing? We read the cursor keys, same as any Phaser game. Now the logic, top to bottom. Question 1, are we in the air? If not on the ground, play jump, a falling or rising character should never look like it's running. Question 2, are we moving on the ground? If a movement key is down, play run, and set flip X to match the direction. Question 3, otherwise, we're standing still, so play idle. Read that out loud and it's just common sense. In the air, jump. Moving, run. Still, idle. And because every one of those play calls passes true, ignore if playing, you can run this whole block 60 times a second. The animations flow smoothly. That handful of lines is a complete, reactive character controller. Save, refresh, and your sprite idles, runs, flips, and jumps exactly when it should. Let's finish with the polish, the details that separate a rough animation from one that feels right. First, Spritesheets versus atlases. Generate frame numbers works when your frames sit in an even grid, every cell the same size. But art tools often pack frames tightly at different sizes to save space, and describe them in a JSON file. That's a texture atlas. You load it with this.load.atlas, and you build frames with generate frame names instead. You give it a prefix and a numbered range, like run_01 through run_06. Same animation system, just named frames instead of numbered ones. Second, frameRate is your field dial. Too low and the run looks like a slideshow. Too high and it blurs. Nudge it a couple of frames per second at a time and watch, you'll feel when it clicks. Third, react to animations finishing. For a one-shot animation like an attack, you don't want to guess when it ends. Phaser fires an animation complete event, so you listen for it and, say, drop back to idle the instant the swing finishes. Clean, no timers, no guessing. Load, create, play, flip, and react, that's the full toolkit. And that is Sprite animation in Phaser, start to finish. You now know how to load a sprite sheet with frameWidth and frameHeight. You can create animations with generate frame numbers and a frameRate. You can play them on state with the ignoreIfPlaying flag. And you can flip direction with setFlipX. That is a living, reacting character. Here's your next move. Want 10 complete Phaser games to pull apart, reskin, and ship? The Phaser Game Dev Bundle is $19, full TypeScript source, link below. And if you're brand new to Phaser, watch make your first game in Phaser next. It's already up, and it builds the whole game this character belongs in. Subscribe for more build-along tutorials. Now go animate something, and send someone the link. See you in the next one.